I don't know about you, but personally, I adore 3D printing. It's not only my hobby, but a big part of my career. And one of the perks of that job is getting to check out new 3D printers before they launch. So when the folks from MOVA AtomForm reached out to me about going to check out their new machine, the Palette 300, and sponsoring a video to show you folks all about it, I was thrilled and jumped at the opportunity. I mean, 36 color capability, a 12 nozzle tool changer setup for multi-material and multi-color printing, and I think a really beautiful design that seemed to have pretty solid fit and finish for a beta unit. So let's get into talking about those details and more. I jumped on a plane up here in Portland, Oregon, and flew down to San Jose, California, where it was sunny and unseasonably warm. For a product launch that felt very Silicon Valley. It was a beautiful setup and beautiful venue. The company brought folks over from China to talk to us about the products, quite a few of them in fact. They've been working on this machine for a few years at this point. A product like this doesn't happen overnight. Before we get into the details that I picked up that I haven't seen others talk about on this machine, let's get the spec sheet stuff out of the way. A couple of things that are basically standard in the industry right now: a Core XY motion system, moving the tool head at high speeds, upwards of 800 millimeters per second print speed at 25,000 millimeters squared acceleration, which is nicely enclosed inside of a beautiful aluminum and polycarbonate chassis. Inside of that enclosure, you'll find a 300 by 300 by 300 build volume, which I think is a great sweet spot in 3D printing. The build platform is supported by triple lead screws, and unlike other machines that use a single motor and belt system to level all 3 points, this actually has independent Z motors to get that bed much more level. There's an auxiliary fan inside of the machine when you need additional part cooling, like printing PLA or even some PETGs. However, you can print higher end engineering materials inside of here. This has a 350 degrees Celsius hot end in it, 110 degrees Celsius bed, and an active chamber heater on the other side panel that gets the internal chamber temperature up to 65 degrees Celsius. So your nylons, your polycarbonates, your PPA and PPS-CF materials will print beautifully inside of here. The machine also has internal filtration, something I think many machines are missing the mark on. It has a filter design that actually recirculates air inside of a chamber, scrubbing it through a HEPA filter and charcoal filter to reduce fumes and particulates. And last but most certainly not least, there is an internal chamber camera to monitor your print at any point, as well as for AI spaghetti detection. That said, there's actually 4 cameras inside of this machine, and that's where we need to talk about some unique elements. At the back bottom of the machine is the carousel that holds the extra nozzles for tool changing. We will talk more about this, but what you need to know for now is there's a camera mounted behind that then optically checks to ensure the nozzle is aligned for proper grabbing for tool changing and to ensure it's grabbing the right nozzle. Then our third camera is on the underside of the tool head behind the nozzle. This is actually looking at the nozzle to ensure it's properly installed after a change and that it's extruding properly. And last, there's a fourth camera at the back of the machine behind the gantry that looks upward. This is used for optically aligning the different nozzles. There can be slight variation between them when they're swapped, so this ensures that they're aligned properly for proper extrusion alignment of your different materials and colors. Serviceability does look like it's actually been considered on this machine. The gantry ends on the X and Y axis seem to have a few visible screws and do look like they would actually be able to be disassembled for repair in the future. The actual X gantry is a bent steel construction, which should be really thermally stable for high temperature printing. It's also providing a stable mounting surface for the standard linear rail on the X axis. Only time will tell how serviceable this is, but it does look like the thought is there. The MOVA AtomForm has a touchscreen interface, as many would expect these days, with a beautiful UI made for this machine. It's nice, it's easy to adjust the angle on, but the standout feature to me is that it allows for Z offset adjustment. My thoughts on this are summed up well by Jerry from the Print House.
Thank freaking goodness someone's actually smart enough to do that.
You don't have to adjust Z offset yourself or bed leveling. The machine takes care of that automatically, but it gives you the option to override that. Something that I wish so many other brands would look at and follow suit. As a power user, from time to time, I want to adjust my offset, and a lot of other companies are making it more and more difficult. Of course, the star of the show is the way that the MOVA AtomForm handles multi-material and multicolor 3D printing. Let's first talk about their RFD6, which is the 6-spool holding enclosure that can also actively dry your filaments. There's an additional power port in the side of it. You can feed power to it so the internal heater can heat the chamber volume and then dry out your filaments in place or act as an active dry box. Each of the 6 slots can feed to the machine. They have spooling setups to feed the filaments out of. So this is a really handy little add-on multi-material system all on its own. And they can be multiplexed. They've shown them up to 36 slots, so 6 of the RFD6 units feeding into one machine. I am very curious as to whether or not we could get the RFD6 working on other Klipper firmware powered 3D printers, because the Palette 300 is running Klipper firmware at its heart. Of course, the star of the show is the OmniElement system, aka that nozzle tool swapping, I don't know what you want to call it, system, but it's unique to say the least. I mentioned earlier the carousel of extra nozzles at the bottom of the machine, up to 12 of them. This will of course allow for different materials to be used through different nozzles, so you don't have mixing of materials, and you can get true multi-material printing. These nozzles are of course proprietary and have an integrated heat break in them. This makes sense in this application. The design of nozzle changing is simple and yet not. The tool head moves to the side, cuts filament, goes to the back where it lines up with a nozzle wrench effectively that comes up, does a little 1/8 turn to loosen the nozzle, then drops down and inserts that nozzle back into the carousel. Carousel rotates so that it can grab another nozzle, whatever one it needs to change to. The wrench travels up and then gives an 1/8 turn to tighten the nozzle into the tool head. What I'm calling the wrench is really a socket type design that has detents in it to hold on to the nozzle while it's making the moves that it needs to. This obviously works in conjunction with the RFD6, which spools filament to and from the machine for the different materials or colors you're going to be using. So you might think that this would be slow like any other MMU system can be, but the secret sauce is it has 2 feed paths coming from the RFD6 into the machine. These meet in the buffer, so all it has to do is pull filament back to the buffer, and the other side can then feed to the hot end. So there is a drastic cut down in how long it takes to unspool and reset filament. The machine we saw on display was a beta unit that was running throughout the day. It's an interesting concept, and I'm really curious about the long-term reliability of it. I do love multi-material printing. I use it fairly often, and a different approach to it is always welcome in my mind. So with the build quality of the machine, all the parts and pieces and functionality that it has, what is this thing gonna cost? This is early bird pricing. I am filming this before the machine is even available for pre-order. Right now, it's looking at about $999 for the early bird price on just the machine. It goes up from there. I highly recommend you stop right now, go to the description, check the link, and look for the latest information down there, as I will update that as pre-orders open, the Kickstarter launches, etc. That said, I always recommend checking out independent reviews before making your buying choices. It's up to you whether or not you listen to that advice. If nothing else, the MOVA AtomForm Palette 300 tickles my engineering brain. There's a lot going on in there. It's fun, interesting, and a different approach to the challenges of multi-material, waste filament. So many things are going on in this machine, plus the RFD6 unit. I'm really interested in seeing how this expands, grows, and performs over the future. I definitely want to thank the folks at MOVA AtomForm for having me out to this launch event and for sponsoring my trip and this video. I really appreciate their support and their interest in me bringing this machine to you folks. Alright, that's going to wrap it up for this one, folks. I hope you found this video interesting. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of this machine, the technology that it's using? I'm really curious to hear what you're thinking. Let me know in the comments. Get subscribed to ensure your 3D prints don't fail. It's not a guarantee, but it can't hurt. See you in the next one, folks.